Hey fans, Matt here from Raising Anchor with yet another episode of Clam Cakes and Clam Chats. Here today with the legendary Welsh himself, one Mr. Scott. Scott, I don't even think I know your last name. That's how much of an anonymity you are. And yet your presence has been felt across the entire RIFC fanscape. How are things going? And welcome to America.
Thank you. We're keeping it a secret until we, win the championship. We're very, very close once, and I'm just going to keep it a secret until we actually make it through the playoffs every single game. Then you can know everything about me. I'll give you social security numbers, the lot.
Do they use social security numbers?
Absolutely not.
So just make one up, 8675309.
Oh, God, you got
it. So, hey, listen, first and foremost, I want to quickly catch up with you. You've now been on what feels like a month of soccer here, visiting the States. Want to talk, how's that time been? What was the purpose behind this trip other than coming out and getting some soccer action, or you call it football, I'm assuming. But I want to ask, how's this trip been and what's been the motivation behind it?
I will try and refer to it as soccer for the rest of this episode. It'll hurt, but for you
friends back home are going to probably haze you.
Oh, it's already happened. Very occasionally I do slip the word soccer in, and it's horrible. It's about 20 minutes of ribbing every time I do it. So the motivation really was just to see RIFC. I've followed them since day one, and it's always been a dream since that first game, New Mexico, to see them. And it's been, in terms of that, fulfilling that dream, seeing the stadium, seeing the people, it's been incredible. Football's been terrible.
We're going to get into that. But before we do, talking here, we're at Dune Bros. Again, we've had some clam cakes. We've gone back and forth about, you talk about ribbing. We've talked about the food across the pond, both directions. And I don't think we see eye to eye, but what's been the overall food scene for you? Have you enjoyed it? Have you been unimpressed? Where does it land? Where does Rhode Island cuisine land?
I've got to be really careful to be as diplomatic and as honest as possible here. The food has been incredible. Everything's made out of carbs, which I enjoy mightily. But it's its own special weight on you in many different ways. Yes. Your bivalves, as we've sampled today, they're good. I do enjoy clam cakes. Stuffy's less so. But no, it's all been very nice. Coffee milk is by far the best invention in humanity. It's sort of electricity, the wheel, the internal combustion engine, and then coffee milk right up here. That's been lovely.
When we talked about it, I heard, are you going to now empty your suitcase and only bring back as much coffee milk as is allowed to enter into the UK?
I'm trying to bring a gallon of the concentrate.
You're going to have to check a bag in for that one.
Yeah, it might have to be that.
It might not make it, too. Maybe TSA is going to take that out when you get there. You won't have it. But let's get now into the soccer. And I want to start with asking, you said you've been a fan of this team since the very first match. You've been a fan since before that, if I remember seeing you on the early days of the Discord. How did you get connected to this club in the first place? And what does it mean to be probably the most farthest traveling fan in Rhode Island FC's associated and brief history so far?
So what got me in, I met a Rhode Islander when I was in university, and we just became, really close friends, and this was over a decade ago. And then, 3.5 years ago, it was announced, and, I was keeping up with it. It was, every couple of weeks or so, there would be some update or other, we signed Koke and all the rest of it. But I wasn't taking it super seriously. It was just sort of a curiosity more than anything. And then, that first game, I found out it was all being streamed on YouTube, which is great. And just hearing fans, and hearing Labanda, mainly, for 90 whole minutes, just banging drums, just making noise. And it was just that feeling of almost instantaneous recognition of the passion. And it just made sense instantly. It's like, okay, these guys are extremely serious about this. I should be as well. I want to be a part of this. I want to share in this passion, and it was great from that moment on. We joined Defiance, and made other little subcultures, and just more time got swallowed up by just talking about this team and experiencing it everywhere I could, and this is the culmination of it, which is fantastic.
So then when you talk about this back home, what is that like for you? Here we always talk about how the community is growing. It's game after game. It's day after day. There's a new Rhode Island FC fan. But you are you're literally on an island almost to yourself. How is it sharing in your appreciation of the club so far away? Have you created like a chapter, so to speak? Like, have you brought more people into the RIFC church from afar, or like what does that look like for you when it comes to celebrating this team?
It's a hard sell. I won't lie. It is a hard sell. Obviously, soccer, football is really big in the UK. Biggest sport. Pretty much everyone has a team. Whether that's Premier League or whether that's lower league, whether that's non-league. So trying to recruit people is a bit of a challenge. I did manage it. I've converted my local pub in Newport to an RAFC chapter. There's flags on the wall and everything, which is very nice. The midnight kickoff games, and if we're playing in the West, the 3-4 o'clock kickoff games, it's very difficult to get people to stay up and watch them. But no, recruited a few people. We've got a few people in Wales, a few people in England. I've got someone in the Czech Republic who's watching most of the games as well, so that's good. But in terms of the reaction, it's usually quite a puzzled why, rather than oh yeah, please tell me more. But no, I've got a few people to watch, and it's just the fact that they're streamed on YouTube is huge. The fact that there are media people, Tide Talk, etc., really does make it a lot more accessible for people like me. I'd be here without you guys, frankly. But being able to meet someone, talk about Rhode Island FC, and go, oh, by the way, here's a load of content for it, is really useful. Actually, I think I've probably recruited quite a few people just in Rhode Island because they hear the accent and go, why are you here? Oh, to watch soccer. Oh, really? Why? It says Rhode Island FC. Oh, really? Oh, where do they play? And then, you go on. So I think I might have.
Do you think the accent may have given you some, authority to speak on the subject? They hear like, oh, well, that's a chap from over there. He knows everything about the sport. So
I do think that certainly within the fandom, people treat me as if I know a lot more about football than I do. I know nothing about football. I'm extremely dumb. I know very little. So no, that has been a massive help.
I don't know if I would agree with that, considering we had a massive conversation before this started talking about the deployment of Kano's men. So we'll get into that kind of here as we tail off. But wanting to get into the actual sport itself, you live, you're immersed in the greatest element of football across the globe. You have your own championship when it comes to leagues over there. When you look at this league objectively, and not just Rhode Island FC, but USL in its totality, how difficult is it to watch some of these games knowing that this is a significantly less professional team, a significantly less professional league in comparison to the talent that's brought in at the Premier side, the Championship side in EFL, even all the way down to League Two? Where do these teams stack competitively, and where's your love of the product overall?
I think that last part is the key part, isn't it? You're not watching any one league because it's the best in the world. Well, at least I hope. I don't watch any of the leagues that I watch because of the skill in that league. You watch it because you support one of the teams, and that's where I am with the USL Championship for sure. It's an investment. This soccer is growing at a tremendous rate in the United States. It's easily the fastest growing sport. You've got the World Cup next year. So I'm not supporting Rhode Island FC because I see this, this thing blowing up in this bubble.
You're not here for the pro rel stories that are coming out in a couple of years.
Well, there we go. So it is about the investment a little bit in terms of the league. It is growing. Brett Johnson's position in it has meant that it's going to grow, and we're getting pro rel in 2027, which is really cannot be overstated for the trajectory of the league. In terms of where they are, sort of worldwide, maybe a League Two, League One. In
terms of talent,
in terms of the sort of British comparison, it's really difficult to say actually, because there is an extremely wide variety of talent in the USL Championship. There are certainly players. I mean, we've lost players who have then gone down a league and are still not being picked every time. And there are definitely players who could easily play in the MLS and be picked every single week without fail. So the cutoff is a lot less clear, I think, in this league. I think because of its age, because of the payment structures to the players, I think there's a lot more sort of arbitrarity in the talent that's within the league. And maybe Pro-Rel will settle this in a few years' time, but it does seem there is a huge chasm between the sort of lower performing players, the lower performing teams, and the higher performing teams. I mean, just look at the league, right? We're already basically settled on who's first and second in our league. So,
Lou has like 1,000 points already. It's out of control. So then I guess what I want to ask is, looking at the league itself and the structure and how you've seen football benefit the people and the culture of where you come from. If you were in charge of any of the divisions of USL today, is there a rule change you would make to the game, knowing the limitations that USL has on itself right now? Is there something you would do to the game that would make it more appealing to the culture that America is trying to set? You get this really unique kind of keyhole view into watching this sport grow and kind of be born, but you've also seen what 100 years of legacy can do to a culture and to a community. Where do you blend the two together? What would you do if you were in charge of making decisions either on the field performance or something more related to league actions and activities?
it's a really good question. I would pay the referees double, but I would fire them more than twice as often. The standard of officiation is really bad in this league, possibly the worst I've ever seen it. It's only possible because I haven't seen that much football, in terms of how much actually gets played globally every week. But the standard of officiation is really bad, and I'd like to see that improved. And I'm not just saying, the referees are just bad people, they're bad at their jobs. This comes with a larger pool of talent that you can select from. So make refereeing a job that people want to do. You'll have more people doing it. You can afford to be a bit more selective, which I suspect they're probably not at the moment. The number one thing for me that really grinds my gears about the league is the openness of information. It's really, really, this as a media guy, it's really difficult to get concrete information from the USL, whether that's rules about, yellow card accumulations, whether it's basically anything about, the rules is not centrally kept. There's 1,000 different blog posts of varying different authenticities that are sometimes relied upon, sometimes not. So the information would be a really big thing. I've had to go to players before to figure out what's going on in terms of rules, in terms of, appeals of yellow cards or red cards or whatever it is. That shouldn't be the case. There should be a little bit more effort on the league to make people, to make the sickers, have some sort of resource to be able to find out about the sport they love, the team they love, the player they love, whatever it is. That information is not easily accessible. That's probably the number one thing I change.
I have a theory on that. I think that as this league and as this country get more into bed with sports betting, and we've talked actually at length about that. I know kind of where you stand on it, but separate from that, I think that sports betting will probably be that transformational, closing the gap, because when you get into such a heavily regulated industry like that, the transparency has to be dialed to an 11, right? Yeah. That means information, that means player injuries, because you're talking odds, you're talking the analytics of making informed bets with people's money. So I think that whether you love sports betting or not, there is a part to the aspect of growing the game and making it. And I want to say it's not a serious league. The USL is absolutely a serious league, but you get to that level and suddenly you're on a whole nother paradigm.
Yeah. Unfortunately, sports betting is coming because it comes for every sport. I feel us immensely privileged that we don't have a sports bet company here that are
wait till Rhode Island Sportsbook monthly comes.
Exactly. Yeah, Twin River.
That's you've been around.
I couldn't possibly comment. But no, I'm broadly against gambling being advertised anywhere, let alone in sports venues and stadia. But it is true that basically every league in the world is funded by sports betting. It does improve the game. Money does improve the game, as horrible of a fact that is. If more people came in with more money, the standard would get better. So it feels like a bit of an eventuality, but I'm glad that we had at least a few years of just, Breeze Airways and nice things and, nothing too connected with Vice.
I'm actually waiting. Speaking of a tie-in, I've heard that on stag flights out of the UK, they actually sell gambling tickets on the plane.
They do.
So that's Breeze. You're welcome. Just be the first,
Get some scratch cards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Want to dive action out into the team. Know that you're a big in the weeds data guy when it comes to the overall performance. I know that, at least I'll say that you're a man who you look for patterns, you look for ability, and you've had some questions, you've had some You've had some moments this season where you've asked from afar, like, what exactly we're doing here with this team. How have your overall thoughts on the performance of the season been, and where do you think this club stands? Not in the standings of 8th place as of this recording, but just overall, like, what's the vibe check for Rhode Island FC?
When's this being released? Am I allowed to swear?
It'll probably be Monday.
Avoiding watershed issues, it's been poor. It just has been poor, hasn't it? We've come in from a really good season with quite obvious problems in our lineup, mainly in the strike force that we've got or don't have, and that just hasn't been fixed. And the same problem last year has reared its head this year, and we just haven't been lucky or skilled or generally fortuitous enough to overcome that. When you have 2 strikers and one of them gets injured, it's going to be a problem, and it is a problem. And we can say, it's the build-up play, it's the chance creation, but maybe it is that as well. But it is certainly that we are not putting balls in the back of the net. And to quote the great Michael Owen, when they don't put balls in the back of the net, they hardly ever win, which is a key tenet in football, if you didn't know, soccer.
Well, then let's ask this question, because early on, as we were into the preseason, we saw the players departing. We saw where the holes in this roster existed. We don't exactly fill all those holes. A lot of fans online early were saying, hey, with no Mark Doyle replacement, we're missing that third striker. Nobody wants our players to get injured, but there's also instances where they just go through bad streaks of form. We don't pick up that winger. We don't pick up that striker, whatever you want to call it, to your point about the strike force. Objectively, also, we lose Turnbull late into the preseason. We never got a real right wing back in 2024, so we never even go out and get that. Kano's changed the tactics to a certain degree, or a big degree, depending on who you ask. But did we get the players from a positional standpoint that we needed to be successful, or has that been part of the hunt here? And is that maybe a little bit on the technical staff? Because if you don't have players in the positions you need, it's kind of hard to get the results you want for the formation and the tactics you want to deploy.
No, 100%. I mean, I think it's extremely clear that we did not get the talent that we needed. We've blown up midfield. We've got every single midfielder known to man.
I think we can use 1 or 2 more.
1 or 2. I mean, if you're listening, just one more defensive midfielder. It'll solve the problem, guaranteed. I can't think of a better solution than another defensive midfielder. That was rude. No, I'm
not going to cut that, and you'll be surprised next week when the next one gets announced. But
no, but clearly the lineup is broken. I like that we've gone for 4 at the back. I'd have just liked it if we did it when Gabby Alves was playing, and then we could have actually fully exploited his potential. Still salty about that. Just a little bit.
Our special boy.
Yeah, our special boy. It's been a really difficult season, and every time we see a sort of monumental change of tactics, pretty much everybody is really glad to see it. Even if we can't see necessarily how those pieces are going to fit together for a win, it's really good to see us trying something different, because for the first part of the season, it felt like we were throwing the same stuff at our opponents, and then sort of Pikachu shot for it. Oh, what? We lost? Really? Again? So I have faith in Kano that he's going to keep trying. I just can't necessarily see how these pieces fit together to form a team that you can see the identity of the goal of. That's something that certainly within my spaces talking about RAFC, no one seems to know what a Rhode Island goal looks like. I can tell you what an almost Rhode Island FC goal looks like. You pass it to Quazera, he runs down the wing, he crosses it, and no one's there. That's happened thousands of times. But apart from a lucky penalty, what is our identity for a goal? What does it look like?
It's been primarily the left channel, and it's a cross, whether it's from Sanchez or it's Quazera. And to your point, we don't have people in the box, or we're not making the second runs to collect any spills. And yeah, we just don't seem to have a way. I mean, we could talk at length of we haven't scored a single goal from a set piece outside of a Jägermeister Cup match, right?
Yep.
Half of our players that performed last season breaking records within the league, 0 assists from a golden playmaker, right? Like there are opportunities across the board. I guess then I would ask you, if we talk about the preseason being what it was and kind of setting us back here, maybe we weren't built for success. Now talk about here, we're in the final third of the season now. Handful of home games left, handful of away games left, a tough schedule here in the month of August. Amongst all of that, what would you do to change this team if you were Coach Connor Smith? Maybe, talk directly to him right now. Maybe he can take some...
Buy a striker. Please buy a striker.
So then any striker. Do you think Dwayne Atkinson is not the answer, given the fact that he's more of a can/winger?
Any attacking would be great. You have to put a little bit of faith in Kano when he says he thinks the problem is chance creation, and if that is true, absolutely fine. If we bring in a Cam, a winger, and they start to perform, fantastic. I will shut up. I will never ask for anything ever again. But to me, it feels like there's a real deficit of goals. What are we now, like -5 in goal difference?
Yeah, 15 -5. Yeah.
It's not great. It's really not great. So,
I mean, the argument has been for fans. Well, that is the argument, yes. But casually, right? We talk about growing the game. Fans have to see goals. Like we've argued at length that it doesn't necessarily need to be a win. A win is even better, but fans at least need to be entertained when they go to these games. And so many 0-0 performances.
100%. This goes beyond what do I think is good for the team. In terms of are we going to win the next game? In terms of the survival of Rhode Island FC as a profitable venture, which it does eventually need to be, you need bums on seats, and you can do as many sort of gimmicks to get people in. And I say that maybe a little dismissively. I'm fine with the gimmicks. If you want to do Dollar Dog Night, get people in. If you want to do a Taylor Swift night, get people in. Absolutely fine. That's great. I'll be going for the football. But
you don't want to tell fans what your favorite Taylor Swift song is?
No, I think I should probably keep that a secret. I wouldn't.
But you do have one.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. I could name all of them. All of those gimmicks are fine, but you do need to win. You need to play sexy football. You need to play good football, successful football, and we are not doing that. I thought that our chance to do that was sort of the beginning half of this season, and we have blown it. I feel that we don't have too many chances left to speak to the people of Rhode Island and say, hey, come, it's a good night. You'll see good football, you'll see good sport, you'll see something that you can get behind and revel in the success of. Because most people do want to see success. They do want to support a team who is winning. We can't even beat Hartford.
Is it fair, though? I mean, we know the injury bug has just ran through this team all season. Obviously, it can't be an excuse to the only thing that drives bad performance. But Kano would be the first to tell you that the chop and change, the rotations, the experimentation has all come at the setbacks of having multiple players at a time, swaths of players not available, mostly starters too at that. What do you do to respond to that? It's not like this is a problem that's unique to Rhode Island FC. Other clubs around the world have had to deal with that. And in places like Pro Rel, well, we can't say, hey guys, we need to get relegated this season because we just weren't healthy enough. In your eyes, watching this injury bug, what would you do differently? What is it in your mind that would be something that we could do to fix the fact that we've been on this just terrible, unlucky streak of injuries? And is it an excuse?
That's the problem. It is an excuse. I mean, is it an excuse that is correct? Yes, it is. Through injury, we have been playing poorly. But there's a couple of things. Yeah, one, every other team has this problem. They have a set amount of money, and they have particularly deep pockets when it comes to this league. We have a chance in the off-season to buy the players that we think we're going to need to create a roster that is going to survive the season. We went through this exact same problem not 12 months ago. And the GM, who is also our head coach, did not buy anyone in those positions. Okay, that's not true. We had a problem basically everywhere, and he filled holes but for the strike force. That's the problem. Other teams have got this problem. Sure, bad luck plays a part. Arsenal in the Premier League should have won by all rights, but they went through some horrible injuries. It does happen. But at the end of the day, we neglected to buy quite a lot of players that really should have been there. We've been hearing for quite a long time. Oh yeah, there's this striker signing that's just on the cusp of happening. We're just being teased a little bit with that, and it didn't come through. That's the main problem. It's not a luck thing, because if we had another striker, if we had another 2 strikers, this wouldn't be a problem. Or at least we could blame the fact that we've got 4 crap strikers rather than the fact that we just don't have any. When JJ gets injured. So is it luck? Yes, but you make your own luck sometimes.
Agreed. I have this weird thing I do where when we let go of players and then we experience these things, I go back and track the health of where they're at. And with the exception of Connor McGlynn, all of our players are either starting. Our former alumni players are either starting, but they've remained healthy all season, which we could really use to take advantage of right now. So that's an exciting thing. But want to wind things down. Want to talk about the games that you've seen here in person. How has that compared to watching it from just your television? What's been your overall experience at Centerville Bank Stadium? You traveled to Pittsburgh to go watch them there.
I did.
Unfortunately, have you seen a win yet in person?
Yeah, Wednesday.
That doesn't count. We're not counting that as a win.
Okay, we don't count that. Absolutely not. No, 100%. No, I haven't.
I mean, if you talk to the fans after the game, they're like, "Hey, we're glad we got it," but like, it didn't feel like a
It
win.
definitely didn't feel like a win. No.
So, how's that experience been? What have been your kind of remarks as you've traveled the states now and seen soccer in multiple places?
That's honestly quite a long one. So one thing that I was really quite relieved about was when you see it on the broadcast, it seems a lot more empty than it is. The average American viewer of football, soccer, is considerably more comfortable with getting up for 20 minutes and going to get the burger or going to get the drink and, mulling around a bit and, maybe looking over at the river. Isn't that pretty?
How does that work in?
Never do that.
Like, why? Like, is it just a culture, or do they shut down the concessions?
No, the game's on. You can go and buy a burger. No one's doing it, unless you're, not got the best mobility or, you're only there because you bring in your boyfriend or something. You watch the match because that's what you're there to do. The half time's pretty hectic, but you watch the game. that's the point.
Who knew it was that hard of a concept?
I know, right? But no, I mean, it's good because these people are spending a lot of money, which is really good. Concessions are a large part of how we get our money. So I'm not complaining. Certainly, it was more of a relief that sort of game after game, I'm seeing empty seats, going, "What is going on? What can we do to get these guys in?" And they're announcing the attendance, and you're like, "That's an awfully high number for the number of people I can see." But there is a solid sort of 10-20% of people who are out of their seats at any one time. So that was actually quite a relief, but a huge difference. The noise. The noise in most stadia in the UK will be reasonably well sort of divided between the whole of the stadium, whereas certainly in our AFC, the vast majority of the noise comes from the supporters section, and it's a lot of noise. It's way noisier than any other supporters section that I've seen, certainly in person, in the UK. But you don't get as much sporadic chanting, for example, outside of just that one supporter section, or that side rather. There's a lot more going on in Tidewater than there is even in your average sort of Premier League place. In the Clam, you've got a bar, you've got a burger stop, you've got basically that's it, really. Maybe a few concessions for club memorabilia, but largely that's all outside the stadium. Whereas, Rhode Island FC, it's a whole experience. I'm shocked that people don't sort of mill around for 2 hours afterwards buying things and getting their pretzels and stuff.
When the pretzel guy figures out to get a pretzel stand outside, like a mobile one where you can just keep slinging them.
Oh, he's going to buy a yacht.
He already probably has one.
Yeah.
But hey, I want to ask, I kind of end on this question because I'm the most curious. We're now in, like we said, the final third. We're in the home stretch of a chance, currently in playoff contention, but it feels like one result and some topsy-turviness can happen on the standings. I want to ask you your overall thoughts for the remainder of the season, your impressions on will we be able to pull out strong and get a playoff berth, maybe not a home playoff berth, maybe a home playoff berth. What are your overall thoughts and confidence in this club to get things done?
Anything is possible. We've seen us come back from worse. Well, we've seen us come back from things that you wouldn't expect us to. Never say die. That was my takeaway.
That is almost too optimistic for someone from the place that you herald from.
Yeah.
I will take it. Scott, thank you so much for joining. Can't wait to have you back on the next time you come across, or maybe we'll have to go to you and we'll get some of that Welsh hospitality we've heard so much about.
Please do. Warm beers.
Hey, I love room temperature beer anytime.